Tonight, a fence surrounds a low-income apartment complex in Portsmouth, and the people who live at the complex are outraged. Tonight, the NAACP met with management at London Oaks. They want the fence taken down. Reporter Megan Puryear has the latest developments.
David, residents aren't just upset about the fence. They say they're even angrier that their homes were ignored in this entire process.
You say you put this fence up to protect us, but yet our inside of our community is not being protected.
Sonia Williams lives in London Oaks Apartments, which is now wrapped tightly with fencing.
Our problem with the gate is the same way you got funding for that. Why didn't you get funding for the necessities that we really need inside of our units?
Williams says the Portsmouth housing unit is breaking down on the inside, and money for the fence could have been allocated toward true needs.
At least 70% of the households have mold and mildew issues, to the point where it's airborne. We have some women who haven't had air conditioner the whole summer, and the only thing that they can tell us is we get into it.
It's prison. It reminds us it's an 8-foot fence. It's unprecedented.
President of the Portsmouth NAACP, James Boyd, explains what the fence surrounding the apartments really means.
The imagery of it is terrible, and it speaks to resources being kept out, not resources coming in.
Monday, management spoke with residents and community members about the fence.
The first thing that she said when she came in the meeting was the fence is not going anywhere.
And why they built it.
The main thing was crime. And then we got the other answer of it's aesthetically pleasing.
In August, Boyd wrote a letter on behalf of the residents asking for management to stop building the fence. Just a month later, it stands tall, surrounding all 296 units and their residents.
Got a loan to do these gates. Why get no loan to do what's inside of the unit?
Resident Sierra Whitehead questions the decision each day.
It took all the regular lights out to order LED lights when they didn't have enough money to fund for the LED lights. My bathroom light went out for 3 months. My son almost got electrocuted because I had a lamp in the bathroom.
Boyd says there's now literally and figuratively a barrier for the Portsmouth community.
Not only a barrier in terms of physical, it's a barrier in terms of psychological, resources, things that the community could come in to help people that are suffering. This image is bad.
Neighbors I spoke with out in the community today say they plan to unite and make a committee to fight back against the decision. Live in the studio, I'm Megan Puryear, 13 News Now.
Traffic has been a mess most of the day at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and it remains backed up right now. We're told a tractor trailer hit the ceiling in the northbound lane this morning. The heavy equipment it was hauling fell. No one was hurt, but the bridge tunnel was shut down both ways. One lane was open temporarily to clear some of the traffic. But drivers told us they have been stuck for hours. All traffic is closed again right now so crews can remove the trailer and the equipment. We're told the closure is expected to stay until 3 a.m. A man is dead tonight after his motorcycle hit a school bus in Norfolk this afternoon. The accident happened at Granby Street and Gilpin Avenue. Police say the 58-year-old man on the bike was seriously injured. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. 3 students from Ocean View Elementary were on the bus. Police say the driver and students were not hurt. The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office will determine whether there will be any charges filed. Tonight, parents of students who attend Norfolk Public Schools had a chance to take a glimpse into the future. At a community dialogue meeting, the school district laid out some potential changes for the division. Robert Boyd has the story from Granby High School.
Well, parents who attended tonight's meeting got a chance to hear a little of everything, from possible redistricting to potentially new start times to maybe closing down some schools and opening up new ones.
There's a lot of change that can happen, and so we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to come and ask us.
Consultant Tracy Richter of Cooperative Strategies has been working with Norfolk Public Schools for the past 6 years. Tonight, they shared some of that work with parents. One of the main things on the list is consolidation.
Norfolk has been in decline in enrollment for the past several years. A lot of that is actually due to lower birth rates that we saw from the recession from 2008 to 2013.
Richter says consolidation shouldn't be looked at as a negative.
Part of consolidation is, can we build new schools in the right spaces where kids are and where they're going to be?
But some parents are concerned families could lose their neighborhood schools they've grown to love. The school board says that's not going to happen.
It is very important for families to be able to purchase a home in an area and know that they are purchasing a home with a very credible and resourceful school.
Another big issue is school start times, which could be pushed way back for high school students.
But right now, we have high school students that get on the bus at 5:45 in the morning. This would mean no student would have to get on a bus before 7 a.m. anymore.
Dana Watson's daughter, Nakaya, is one of those high school students that, in her opinion, goes to school way too early.
It is still dark outside, so there are some safety concerns.
Nakaya is also worried about simple building maintenance. According to Richter, it would cost the district $491 million to fix everything needed in all 44 buildings.
Well, where my desk is like tiles and roofing missing, and it's like leaking, and it's a real distraction from my learning, like water falling on my paper and stuff.
Some possible recommendations are expected to be delivered to the school board by the end of the year, where they could make some final decisions. In Norfolk, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.
Norfolk Public Schools will hold another community meeting at 5:30 tomorrow at Richard Bowling Elementary. Then later in the month, there will be one more meeting on October 29th at Lake Taylor Middle School. A man died this morning while swimming in the Outer Banks. Authorities at Cape Hatteras National Seashore say the victim was a 63-year-old man from New York. We're told the victim's friend and medics tried to do CPR. We're told the risks of rip currents has been high in recent days. This is the 5th swimming-related death off Cape Hatteras National Seashore this year. It's been 1 year now since the mass shooting in Las Vegas. It was the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. Tonight, survivors and family members dedicated a garden in memory of the victims. There are 59 trees in the garden, one for each victim, plus one tree that represents life. Also tonight, the marquee lights on the Las Vegas Strip will go dark to remember the people killed during the country music concert. In the battle over Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, the FBI is investigating sexual misconduct allegations against the judge. The White House says it's given the FBI clearance to interview anyone it wants by the end of the week. ABC's Lana Zock reports the probe itself is becoming intense.
At a rally in Tennessee, President Trump accused the Democrats of using the investigation into sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh as a political tool.
But Dianne Feinstein, she had this letter for months, and she didn't reveal it until everything was finished. Then she revealed it. Then she says, oh, we want more time.
President Trump says he wants the FBI to investigate anyone within reason. Democrats are offering up a list of 24 individuals that they say are crucial to the investigation. And around the country, protesters are rallying around the accusers.
No!
Are urging the FBI to follow every lead. Republican Senator Jeff Flake says he's pushing for a thorough investigation.
I, for one, am waiting for the additional information that will come from the supplemental FBI investigation to inform my decision on Judge Kavanaugh's nomination.
Flake's support will be crucial to Kavanaugh, who vehemently denies all accusations.
It's a jury of 3. It comes to Jeff Flake and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. The question is whether they conclude that he should not be supported.
The FBI has been given just 1 week to complete its background investigation. Lawyers for Deborah Ramirez say FBI investigators have spoken with her, but so far she's the only one of the 3 named accusers to be interviewed. And earlier Monday, President Trump said he would not be bothered if the FBI interviewed all 3 of Kavanaugh's accusers and the nominee himself, leaving the door open if the FBI finds something.
The person that takes that position is going to be there for a long time. I have a very open mind.
Lana Zach, ABC News, Washington.
Portsmouth Councilman Mark Whittaker is officially a convicted felon. A judge signed an order to make Whittaker's 3 forgery charges official. It also means the state law suspending Whittaker from his city council seat automatically goes into effect. Another consequence, Whittaker is now a convicted felon whose rights have not been restored. That means he will not be allowed to run for re-election to city council this November as he had planned. Whittaker's lawyer tells us Whittaker still plans to appeal the conviction. The ongoing trade fight may leave a bitter taste in the mouth of one of Hampton Roads' growing industries, breweries. The struggle is over tariffs on stainless steel and aluminum. Local brewers who can their beers are the ones hit hard by the tariffs. We talked to the owner of Smart Mouth Brewery in Norfolk, who says there have already been cost increases.
There's keg prices. If we buy and expand and buy new tanks, that's the prices. And then behind me, as you can see, aluminum cans would be the biggest hit for us. There's not really anything we can control or do about it. The only thing we could do would be eventually pass the price on to our customers, and that's kind of a last resort.
So what does this mean for the cost of a 6-pack? We're told in the long term prices will probably go up in tariffs if they remain, but right now it is not a problem.